So if you've ever wondered what it actually looks like to live 25 minutes from Bozeman, but feel like you're a world away from it, a creek running through the backyard, elk wandering past, real distance between you and the next house, that's Gallatin Gateway. And I've got a property today that's honestly one of the best examples I've ever seen. So Gallatin Gateway sits just south of Bozeman, right where the valley starts to funnel into the canyon on the way to Big Sky. It's not the canyon itself necessarily, though a lot of that is considered Gallatin Gateway. But the main area that most people consider to be Gateway is that corridor right before it along 191. So you get this in-between feel. So you're still close to town and you've got this open area right before the mountains start to close up a little, if that makes sense. And there's real history behind the name, which I think is worth knowing if you're going to live here. This started out as a little sawmill town back in the 1860s called Slabtown, then Salesville, named for the guy who ran the mill. It didn't become Gallatin Gateway until 1927 when the Milwaukee Road Railroad built the Gallatin Gateway Inn right there. This grand Spanish Revival hotel meant to funnel Yellowstone-bound tourists off the train and up through the canyon. That inn is still standing today, and up until just a few years ago, it was still an operating hotel. Currently owned by the Yellowstone Club, I believe it's being used for employee housing at this point, but it's part of why this area has always had this identity as the doorway to the canyon and the park, not just a random spot on the map. It's also had an agricultural and ranching backbone for a very long time. You'll find working ranches sitting right next to newer acreage properties, and the town still puts on its rodeo every summer, which tells you a lot about the character out here. So the rural feel isn't manufactured. It's not landscaping dressed up to look rural, it's actually rural with a real working history behind it. And there's real tangible small town stuff here too, not just open land. Stacy's has been a local bar and steakhouse since 1937. Very old school character, live music, the kind of place that's been a fixture for generations. The Jump restaurant and marketplace is a newer addition, fully renovated with food and a little marketplace of locally made goods. And if you're curious about local history, there's even a one-room schoolhouse museum in the area, built back in 1912, that shows you what education looked like out here a century ago. But the geography that makes this area so beautiful is also the thing I want to be upfront with you about before we go any further. So there's something I tell every client looking at Gateway. I'd rather you hear it from me now than find out later on down the road after you've moved in and reality hits. Highway 191 is the road that connects Bozeman to Big Sky, going right through Gallatin Gateway. And it's a busy two-lane highway. It's the same road that carries ski traffic, tourist traffic, commuter traffic, and construction traffic. And those peak seasons in the winter and summer, that road can be quite busy. Depending on where a property sits relative to the highway, that can mean some road noise, and it can mean paying real attention to how and when you're pulling in and out of your own driveway or neighborhood. Now, I'll also say it's genuinely well maintained. Road conditions near Gateway, even in winter, really aren't bad. Good snow tires and all-wheel drive go a long way out here, but honestly, that's true for most of this area, regardless of the highway. But I'll say it plainly, not every property in this area is equally lucky on the noise and access side. Some sit right up against 191, and that's just a different experience day to day than one that's set back. So this is genuinely something to take a look at and ask about on every single Gateway property you look at, and not just assume. Now on today's property specifically, I'm going to tell you exactly where this one falls on that spectrum once we're actually out on the land, but I wanted you to know it's a real question before we get there, not something I'm going to gloss over. But before I get any further into what this area offers, let me pause for just a moment. If you're thinking about a move to this part of Montana, whether it's a property like this one or something completely different, feel free to reach out. I talk to clients about things like that with the highway consideration upfront on every single property, because the right buyer for a place like this already knows what they're signing up for, and I'd much rather match you to the right property than just the prettiest listing photos. I'm Hallie with HK Montana Realty, and my info is right here. Okay, now let's actually get into what makes this area worth that trade-off. You're trading sidewalks and streetlights for something a lot quieter. A lot of these properties run on well and septic, acreage, and potentially no HOA. So what you do with your land is entirely up to you. That's a huge part of the draw for a lot of relocation clients. And honestly, the idea that you can have a horse, a shop, a garden, whatever your version of Montana looks like without someone else's covenant telling you no, it's genuinely one of my favorite parts of this job, helping people find that specific version of it. And you're right at the doorstep of Gallatin Canyon Corridor and National Forest access. So hiking, fishing, hunting, hunting, snowmobiling in the winter, it's all just minutes away, if not right out your doorstep. So it's not something you have to plan your whole day around. The canyon road itself is actually a designated scenic byway, so even the drive towards Big Sky is part of the appeal, not just the destination. You've got the Gallatin River right there as well. South Cottonwood Creek Trailhead is just east of here, and it's a local favorite for hiking, especially in the fall. And Lava Lake down in the canyon is another one worth knowing about. And once you're in the canyon proper, you've got whitewater rafting and some genuinely great fly fishing on the Gallatin itself. For anyone with kids, there's one school right in Gateway. It's K through 8, and from there, students head into Bozeman for high school. Niche.com currently grades them an A or an A- for both of those schools. If that's useful context for you, I definitely recommend checking out niche.com yourself or greatschools.org. Either way, it's worth knowing whatever your situation looks like. And it's not just solitary recreation out here either. There's an actual community rhythm to the place. The summer rodeo is a real local event, not a tourist thing dressed up for visitors. So you get both sides of it, total privacy on your own land and still a small town social calendar if you want to plug into it. And that access is exactly where this specific property earns its keep, because it's not just close to that lifestyle, but it's built around it. So this is genuinely wildlife country, and I want to talk about that plainly rather than just as a selling point. For a lot of people, that's the whole reason they're here. This stretch of the valley has its own resident elk herd, locally known as the Gateway Elk Herd, along with deer and everything else that moves through. Seeing that on your land is part of the draw for a lot of people, not an inconvenience. For others, it means thinking through fencing, garden protection, livestock considerations, that sort of thing. Neither reaction is wrong. It really depends on what you're looking for, but it's real either way and worth knowing going in. And there's one more thing worth knowing before we get out on the land. I'd be leaving something out if I didn't mention this. We get real Montana winter here. Snow, cold, wind, generally from around November through April. That's not unique to Gateway, but it touches a couple things I've already mentioned. The highway I talked about is also a plow route, though again, it's well maintained. And a property like this on well and septic with a long driveway means winter is just part of the yearly rhythm of owning it. Worth mentioning the other side of the calendar too. Late summer and early fall can bring some wildfire smoke some years, like a lot of the West. Not every year and not constant, but it's worth mentioning that it happens. Plenty of people who move here genuinely love the winter, snowmobiling and skiing practically out your back door, and the smoke, when it happens, is a season, not a lifestyle. Others weigh it differently. Either way, it's better to know it up front. So if all of that said plainly, let me actually show you the land, because this is where it all comes together. So this is actually a good place to answer that highway question I raised earlier. This property sits well back from 191, so you get real separation from it once you're out here. That's not true of every lot in Gateway, which is why I said it's worth asking about for each and every property. So this is on 21 acres, and what makes this particular piece so special is Big Bear Creek. It runs the entire length of the north boundary of the property. It's not a seasonal trickle. This is a real defined waterway, and it functions as a genuine wildlife corridor. So elk, deer, bear, osprey, sandhill cranes, bald eagles, they move through here with real regularity, not as some rare sighting you get lucky with once a year. And then there's the pond, stocked and just steps from the back door. So if you fish, you genuinely don't have to leave your property to do it. It's stocked with cutthroat trout, and there's an automatic feeder right there. And then of course, this ties right back to that national forest access I mentioned earlier. You've got it minutes away, but you've also got a slice of it essentially right here on your own 21 acres. This also means there's real distance between you and the road and between you and your neighbors. So between the creek, the pond, and everything growing up and around both of them, this isn't just acreage on paper, it's a genuinely private, lived-in piece of land. Quick aside before we head to the buildings, if this is the kind of property that speaks to you, I've got a whole playlist of other Gateway area videos, including a vlog tour and pros and cons. I'll drop that link at the end, so stick around for that. So let's go take a look at what's sitting on this land, starting with a building I think a lot of people are going to want to see first, the shop. So this shop is separate from the house entirely, sitting over here just beyond the backyard. It's got 3 bays, plus an extra garden room and more space. You've got carriage style doors, a covered breezeway running the length of the front of it, and it's not just ground floor storage. There's a full second story up top with its own windows, so that's real usable space that you could do a lot of different things with. Currently, it's being used more as an attic, but lots of potential there. When you step inside, you can see this thing was actually built to be used, not just to look good in photos. You've got the concrete floor, wood plank walls, and a full loft accessed by a stairway. That's that storage space up there. So there's genuine square footage up there. There are several built-in workbenches with cabinets, storage, racks along the wall for lumber or skis or whatever you're storing, and enough room that whoever's living here now has a tractor, a UTV, and a full-size truck parked in here with room to spare. This is the kind of space that changes who this property works for. It's not just there's a garage, there's real square footage for someone who actually uses their land. Boats, tractors, ATVs, a workshop, a home gym, storage for gear through every season, whatever your version of that is. Built in 2001, so it's got some age to it, but it's a custom Western style build. So you can see that the second you walk up. Stone columns framing the front entry, a wood plank door, covered porch, that whole warm lived-in mountain feel. There's a stone chimney too, and split rail fencing running along the property, which just adds to that ranch character. Around back here is really where this property shows off. You've got a big multi-level deck, a stone patio, a hot tub, a built-in space for grilling, all under a covered porch off the main living space. So whether it's morning coffee or an evening out here, there's a lot of outdoor living already built in. Not something you'd have to add, and with the back of the house facing the land the way it does, you're looking out at the same acreage, the same creek corridor right from the deck. So the indoor and outdoor parts of this property, they really aren't separate stories. They're the same one. And attached directly to the house, there's also a 2-car garage with storage space above it. So between that and the shop we just walked, there's real serious space for vehicles and gear across the property. Now let's step inside and see how that same craftsmanship carries through the house itself. So coming in through the main foyer here, you land right in the living room behind me, and the first thing that gets you is this fireplace. Floor to ceilings, stacked stone, a wood mantle, built-ins on either side, hardwood floors underneath. It's the kind of room that photographs well, but honestly, it's built to actually be lived in. This main floor is really laid out in 2 wings. A nice option for guests or a home office, given it's got its own privacy right off the foyer without being tucked in with the rest of the house. The kitchen leans warm and functional. You've got knotty alder cabinetry, granite countertops, slate tile underfoot. There's a 6-burner gas cooktop with a statement stainless steel hood over the island. You've got double wall ovens built in as well. There's even a little built-in wine rack right here behind me in the cabinetry. And then at the far end of this floor, past the living room, that's where the primary suite sits. It's got its own little wing, essentially, with vaulted ceilings and French doors that walk straight out to the back deck with that hot tub. The primary bath has a double sink vanity in that same knotty alder with a center storage tower between the sinks, and it opens straight into the walk-in closet with built-in shelving. It's kind of circular here. You walk through, you can go from the bathroom to the closet or through the closet to the bathroom. So there's real separation between the primary suite and the rest of the sleeping space in this house, which is worth pointing out for anyone who values that kind of privacy. Now, another detail that surprises people who hear custom Western style home and assume everything's on one level. This one's got a basement. Let's head on down. So I'm down here in the basement now. This house has 4 bedrooms total and 2.5 baths, with 2 of those bedrooms upstairs and 2 downstairs. You've got the primary upstairs with that separate suite and that privacy little guest suite off of the kitchen. And this finished basement feels great right now, I gotta say. It's really warm out there today here, and this house does not have air conditioning, but having a basement like this with egress windows, it's just nice and cool down here. It also doesn't feel like a typical basement. It's got the same finishes as upstairs with that knotty pine trim and doors, carpet throughout. You've got real closets with, built built-in shelving and walk in. So none of it is really an afterthought. One of the bedrooms actually has a built-in bunk setup alongside a queen bed, which makes it a great option for guests or kids without anyone having to share a room awkwardly. This home has actually been used as a VRBO very successfully. So if you're curious about information on that as well, be sure to comment below or reach out. Now the basement bathroom down here has its own character from the main floor baths. It's got a tiled walk-in shower with a mosaic accent strip. You got stone tile walls and a single vanity. Little bit different style from the primary bath upstairs, but every bit as finished. There's also an additional room down here beyond the bedrooms and the rec room that could be used as an office as well, especially during those warmer summer months. And then of course we have the rec room. It's the main room you walk into when you come down here. You've got this exposed brick accent wall, real room for a foosball table or game setup, comfortable sectional seating. This is a genuine hangout space, not just a bonus room in name only. And there's one detail about this basement that I absolutely love. There is ample storage too. You're not having to store things in the rec room. You've got 2 different storage spaces right before you get to the bedrooms, plus a little nook for games and whatnot. You could also turn one of them into a wine cellar or something like that if that interests you. Now all this is great, but none of it works without the stuff you don't necessarily see on camera. So functionally, this property runs on wells, serving the home, irrigation, and livestock needs if desired, plus septic. The zoning is rural residential. There's no HOA, so there's real flexibility in how you use the land. That circles back to what I said earlier about Gateway in general. You could have a hobby farm, an equestrian setup, or just the acreage itself for privacy and recreation. It's your call to make, not the covenants. And here's where it really comes together for anyone still weighing that highway trade-off I mentioned at the start. Even with all that privacy, even with Highway 191 running past the area, you're still about 25 minutes to downtown Bozeman and around 35 to the airport. And you're close enough to Big Sky that skiing is an easy trip, not a whole production, which yes, is the same highway I mentioned earlier. So the convenience and the trade-off really are 2 sides of the same road. And if you're into fishing, this one's worth spelling out. You're 10 minutes from the Gallatin River and further out roughly 40 minutes to the Madison and 50 to the Yellowstone. So you're centrally located for some of the best blue ribbon water in the state, on top of what's already right here on the property. And if you're curious what the broader market looks like out here, active listings right now range anywhere from $435,000 up to $15 million, with a median list price in Gateway sitting right around 1.7. So it really runs the gamut, but a good chunk of what's out here, especially the acreage properties, lands solidly in that $1 to $3 million range. If you're curious how that compares to other areas around Bozeman, definitely reach out. Happy to walk through that data with you too. So that's Gateway in a nutshell, honestly. So if a property like this has you thinking about what's possible out here, that's exactly the kind of conversation I love having, whether you're ready to move now or just starting to explore what's out here. Let's run through the property one more time. 21 acres with Big Bear Creek running the whole north boundary, a trout stocked pond right off the back door, real separation from the highway, a 3-bay shop with a loft, an attached 2-car garage, a primary suite that's genuinely its own wing, plenty of rec space and 2 more bedrooms downstairs, and no HOA telling you what to do with any of it. So for all of that, the acreage, the creek, the shop, the setting, this one is listed at $4.3 million. And like I mentioned earlier, if this kind of property is speaking to you, I've got more Gateway area videos linked right here. So if you want to check those out, I'll see you over there. And if you can't right now, of course, until next time, I hope to show you around.